18, yes. 20, yes. 2, yes. 0, yes. 4, gone. There's a card game in Germany that more people play than football, according to the governing body. There are clubs for it with an umbrella organization that strives to have it recognized as a sport. Championships are played nationally and internationally, and unlike Mau Mau, there are, of course, no house rules. Well, almost. Welcome to YD. Why do Germans do things the way they do? The game we are talking about today is a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage, and it all started at the beginning of the 19th century. A group of Altenburg notables, probably from a Tarok club, developed a new game from other older games and initially called it Erzgebirgischer Schafkopf. Hans Karl Leopold von Gabelins, one of the dignitaries, called it Skat for the first time in his records on 1st September 1813. These records show his winnings and debts, so we know that Skat was played for money from the very beginning. In an 1818 issue of the Osterländische Blätter, an article is written about the Skatblatt. The game quickly became very popular and spread throughout German-speaking countries. In 1848, Johann Friedrich Ludwig Hempel, another of the initial honorees, wrote the first rule book, but many house rules had already emerged. There were two fundamentally different approaches to teasing alone, an important part of the game. Around 1870, a movement began to standardize the game and the rules again so that it did not fall into different games. The oldest Skat club is Skatia zu Bremen von 1864. Also, it is not a member of the German Skat Association. It is a circle of friends of around 30 members who meet once a month and whose winnings benefit the Seenotretter, DGZRS. The unification of the German Empire in 1871 favored centralized structures. On the other hand, the game of Skat spread all over the world thanks to numerous emigrants. In the 1880s, there were more textbooks on the game of Skat, and in 1886, the first major Skat tournament in Altenburg led to the first Skat Congress at which the general German Skat rules were adopted. However, it was not possible to agree on one of the two bidding methods, so both remained permitted. In 1899, the German Skat Association was founded at the Third Skat Congress. A year earlier, an association for a North American Skat League had even been founded. It was not until 1928 that the 11th Skat Congress established number bidding as a sole method. The rules from back then actually remain unchanged. But what is it all about? Skat is played in threes, always. It is played with a hand of 32 cards. It can be played with French or German hand. The official tournament cards are based on the French hand, but actually have four colors: black, green, red, and orange. I didn't know that before either. In this game, the cards are placed on the table in tricks, and the winner of the tricks takes the trick. At the end, the tricks are counted, and you have one or two winners. Even the shuffling and dealing of the cards is laid down in the rules. The dealer shuffles the cards. At least four cards must be cut, and at least four cards must remain. The cards are then dealt in a clockwise direction. First, each player receives three cards, not individually, but together. Then the skat is placed in the center, which is two cards. This is where the game gets its name from the Estonian scartare, meaning to put away. Then four cards are dealt and finally another three cards, so that each of the three players has 10 cards. The dealing is done in turn, as this also changes the order in which the cards are dealt. The second part of the game is the bidding, which I will explain at the end. Many newcomers have the most problems with the bidding. So let's move on to the actual game. It is typically for one player to win the bidding. pick up the Skat, and then play the game against the other two. He counts the tricks he takes while the others count up the tricks. In the game, there are typically four trumps, the jacks. The declarer can then announce one more color, which should also be trumps. If he does not announce a color, this is called a grand, because only jacks are trumps. The sequence of simple cards start with the ace, then the 10, the king, the queen, the 9, the 8, and the 7. When it's the player's turn to play a card, it must be played. It must play a trump with a trump and a false suit with the corresponding false suit. So if a jack is played as a trump, the other players must also play a trump, if they have one. If you cannot play a trump, you can play another card. If, for example, the wrong suit of hearts and the ace is played, everyone must play a hard card except the jack of hearts. If the ace is the highest card, the player then takes a trick and plays it face down in front of him. If one of the players doesn't have a heart, the player can discard another wrong suit or takes a trick with a trump. If someone deals incorrectly, the game can be ended at this point and the other party wins. When the tricks are counted at the end, there are 120 points in total, as the card's values for counting are the follows: Ace 11, 10 10, King 4, Queen 3, Jack 2. 9, 8, and 7 each count as 0 points. In a normal game, the lone player must have at least 61 points to win. If a party does not even have 31 points, it has been played Schneider. And if it has no points at all, it has been played Schwarz. Anyone who thinks that was already complicated can now look forward to the bidding. If we start from the shuffle, the player who receives the cards first is called forehand, the player who receives the cards afterwards is called middle hand, and the dealer, or in case of a dealer's card, if there are always four players and one always drops out, the player who receives the cards last is called backhand. Our forehand has the advantage when bidding. So that we know which jack is the highest trump, there's also a ranking in suits. The sequence is clubs, spades, hearts, and diamonds. The jack of clubs is therefore the highest trump. When translating, I realize that I prefer the German term Trumpf. Why is that? At the same time, the colors have been given a multiplier. Clubs 12 points, spade 11 points, hearts 10 points, diamonds 9 points. The following rule now applies to the bidding. I first count all the trumps that I have or do not have in an unbroken row from the jack of clubs and add 1. In the best case, I have all 4 jacks and the 6 highest cards of a suit, or all 7 to be precise, which is then in the Skat. Then I would be able to calculate with 10 play 11. However, if I calculate without jack of clubs and jack of spades, I have without 2 game 3 as a basis. I multiply this base with the suit value. In the first example, 11 times heart, so 10, would be 110. In the second example, 3 times clubs would be 36. Add to this the grand, what means if no suit is to be trumps, with a value of 24. Without 3 games, 4 times 24 would be 96. This would be the maximum value with which I can bid. If I assume from the outset that I will play the others Schneider, I can add another point or even one more if I announce this directly. The same applies if I want to play the opponent Schwarz, black, and another point if I announce this. And another point is added if I don't pick up the Skat, what means play hand. In the example, without 2, Schneider 3, announced 4, game 5. If I really had 4 jacks and the highest hearts in my hand, I could decide whether I want to play hearts or grand. But in both cases, I could announce Schneider or Schwarz, or wouldn't even have to pick up the Skat. By the way, if I lay the cards down in front of me, play over, That gives me one more point, but open means that I play to 0 anyway and do not surrender a trick. Not just a point, but no trick, even if there are only no numbers without value. A grand ouvert would end up with a value of 264. As a colored heart, it would be only 170. As a small bonus, there are for null games, if a player has such bad cards that he thinks he won't win a trick. Also important here, no trick, not just no points. A simple 0 game has a value 23, 0 hand 35, 0 ouvert 46, and 0 ouvert hand has a value of 59. But now to the bidding itself. After the deal, each player has picked up the 10 cards and now calculates the maximum he can play. The minimum, with or without one game 2 times 9 for diamonds, is 18, so the bidding always starts with 18, which explains the row from the beginning, because the next possible game value are 20 for hearts, 22 for spades, and 23 for a 0 game, sometimes also called 0. The player after the dealer, forehand, hears, which the next player, middle hand, calls. The advantage here is that forehand agrees with yes or I have, or if he doesn't, denies with away or no. Forehand itself does not have to tease or does not have to have more, just as much as enough. When the bidding between forehand and middle hand has been decided, backhand comes in and says its values if it's higher. Or, as I have been taught, deal, listen, talk, talk some more. The winner of the bidding can now take up the Skat unless he wants to play hand. A problem can arise if I have bid without 2 game 3 times diamonds 27, but now find the jack of clubs in the Skat, even if I play hand the cards in the Skat count. Then with 1 game 2, I would have 2 times 9 is 18. So now I have to play at least Schneider, otherwise I have overbid. I now have to swap the 2 cards from the Skat with 2 cards in my hand and bury 2 new cards back in the Skat. In the final count, the cards in the Skat count towards the total cards in the trick. The forehand always starts with the lead, regardless of who is the declarer. After the first round, the person who took the trick always leads. The points are counted in the final score, and it is checked whether the lone player has won in the corresponding frame. If so, he is awarded the game value as plus points. A lost game is recorded as minus points with double the game value. Skat is still played for money, but usually for 1 cent per point. After a few rounds, the points are then calculated, and in a not entirely simple calculation, some people have to put something in the center and the others can take their winnings from it, which is usually somewhere between 2 and maybe €5 in the evening. And if you're looking for a club where you can socialize a bit more, you can see if there isn't a Skat club. There are also national leagues and international championships, just like in various sports. And although there are official rules, there's also a bit of junk, but this only exists in the unofficial house rules, just like Bock, Re, Contra, or 36 points as a basis for a Grand Ouvert. The latter actually used to be official in the German Skat rules, which were regulated by the German Skat Association, unlike the International Skat Players Association, ISPA. Since 1998, the rules have been standardized and the dispute between the two organizations has been settled. Anyone who doesn't believe this can turn to the International Skat Court, which consists of the German Skat Court, to which 2 other members are assigned by the ISPA. Of course, it is based in Altenburg in Thuringia, where the game of Skat began. Everything must be in order. Well then, good hand. Remarks, addition and comments in the comments. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next video.